Hey, welcome back to the show. We've got a couple of great stories to cover with you today, including the fact that Renée Good, the woman that was shot by the ICE agent in Minnesota, has now been confirmed to be part of an activist organization whose sole purpose is to interfere and disrupt ICE operations in Minnesota. As well, Ilhan Omar was denied entry into an ICE facility near Minneapolis, and a sheriff in Philadelphia is now threatening to arrest ICE agents if they come to her city. That and much more coming up right now. So let's go ahead and start with our first story, which is Renée Good being part of an organization whose sole purpose is to interfere and disrupt ICE operations in Minnesota. Take a look.
This morning, new details also emerging about the driver who was killed in Minneapolis. The New York Post reports Renée Good was part of a group of activists who worked to document and resist the federal immigration crackdown in Minnesota. Good, who did move to the city last year, linked up with the anti-ICE activists through her 6-year-old son's woke charter school, which boasts that it puts social justice first and prioritizes involving kids in political and social activism. It was through her involvement, the report goes on, in the school community that Good became involved in ICE Watch, a loose coalition of activists dedicated to disrupting ICE raids in the sanctuary city. ICE Watch and adjacent groups can also turn confrontational, with numerous instances of activists ramming agents with their cars in the past.
Now, I'm not sure if you guys caught that first part, but it said that her kid goes to a school that prioritizes social justice and getting kids involved in politics early. I would never send my kid to a school like that. What happened to kids just growing up as kids? Why don't we just let them grow up to enjoy life the way that we used to enjoy life? Why do we have to get them involved with these radical movements so early on? You know, unfortunately, the saddest part about this is the fact that Renée Good was obviously radicalized by the left, and I can almost guarantee you that she was doing the same to her kids, and that is unfortunate. I think we all know why this thing in Minnesota got completely out of control, and that's because the facts are being covered up by emotions, by politics, and by false narratives. Almost immediately after this thing happened, the same voices rushed out to say murder. They didn't wait for the facts. They didn't wait for an investigation. They didn't even wait for law enforcement to make a statement. Look, I think we need to be clear on exactly what happened here. The fact of the matter is that Renée Good was in her vehicle, and the vehicle was seen as a weapon to the ICE agent, who then acted accordingly when he felt that his life was in danger. Now, we all know that under Minnesota law and federal use of force law, an officer has a right to defend himself if he feels that his life is in danger or if he feels that there is an imminent threat or a chance of serious bodily harm, which is what happened here. Whether he had the right to defend himself should not be controversial because that's settled law. That is concrete. And yet, instead of allowing the process to take place, what our politicians and activists did was they hijacked another tragedy to attack law enforcement and federal authority. Look, we've seen this movie before. Minneapolis became ground zero for chaos in 2020 after leaders chose politics over policies. If you remember, crime surged, officers quit, and law-abiding citizens paid the ultimate price. Now, Governor Walz wants to activate the National Guard. Remember, he sent a warning order to the National Guard to be ready for activation. But he's looking to activate the National Guard not to support law enforcement operations on the ground, but to counter federal law enforcement operations. I want that to sink in for a second. Governor Walz and Mayor Frey are not doing anything to help the situation, especially when they're telling ICE to get the F out of their city and out of their state. But Governor Walz and Mayor Frey aren't the only two clowns that are making headlines. A sheriff in Philadelphia just said that if ICE conducts operations in her city, she's going to put them in jail. Take a look.
I'm Rochelle Bilal, the sheriff for the city and county of Philadelphia. And I say her name, Renée Good.
Renée Good.
Renée Good.
Renée Good.
Renée Good.
Renée Good.
This should not have happened, but we're here today. Let know that law enforcement professionals, real ones, not the fake made up ICE, probably Trump's new army to attack citizens of the United States. Did you hear what I said? No law enforcement professional wears a mask. None.
I want you to process that for a second. She's saying that this is fake, Trump, made up army, whatever the hell she said. ICE has been around since 2003. And the only thing that they're doing right now is enforcing the laws that are on the books. If people don't like these laws, what they need to do is they need to change them. And how do we change the laws? By changing the politicians. What type of ignorant comment did she just make when she said that law enforcement officers don't wear masks? Really? So SWAT doesn't wear masks? Are you kidding me? Look, I know exactly what she's trying to do. She's trying to make this about race. This isn't about race. It's not about slogans. It's not about narratives. This is about whether the rule of law still matters in America. As a society, we need to start separating fact from fiction, law from propaganda, and accountability from political theater. Because it's obvious we can't trust our politicians to tell us the truth. It seems like most politicians these days are all engaging in political theater, and all they're looking for is clicks. Let's continue listening to the sheriff.
None of that here. None of that here. Law enforcement professionals do not shoot at moving vehicles. I'm not saying fleeing because she wasn't fleeing. She was getting out of the way.
So let's go ahead and fact check what she just said. She said that Renée Good wasn't fleeing. Let's go ahead and play the video in slow motion. You tell me what you think.
The officers were trying to get her out of the car. She ignored their order and slammed the gas pedal. And obviously, another agent saw this and reacted and shot her.
Look, I don't know what you guys saw, but I think the agent was justified in everything that he did here. Now, the issue with this video is that it can play to both sides. The left can say all he needed to do was get out of the way. Maybe she would have run over his foot or something like that, right? The right can say, well, he was in front of the vehicle, he felt that there was a threat, and he acted accordingly. But that's very easy to say in hindsight. Remember, the same officer had been drugged in the same situation. You know, when I hear this sheriff, what I think about is the fact that politics and ideology have replaced professionalism and constitutional duty. You know, and I'm really grateful that this sheriff is not responsible for the security in my community, or for that matter, the security of the people of the city in Philadelphia. The sheriff's office in Philadelphia is only in charge of court duty, civil processes, and serving warrants. Thank God. Now, two of the things that this sheriff is known for is sanctuary city policies for supporting them, which include cashless bail, and DEI. Now, I'm going to let you guys be the judge of why she supports DEI policies. Now, let's go ahead and listen to the legality of the operations that ICE is currently conducting from her perspective.
So I'm with the DA, and we will work with them. If any of them want to come in this city and commit a crime, you will not be able to hide. Nobody will wish you off. You don't want this smoke, because we will bring it to you. And the fake, whatever they call them, because I can't say the name, but the criminal in the White House would not be able to keep you from going to jail. Renée Good should be here today. And to her family, we are saying law enforcement professionals are not the ones here in this city that would do that.
Look, once again, I completely disagree with what the sheriff is saying. Everything that ICE is doing is legal because all they're doing is enforcing the laws on the books. I'm not sure where she's getting her information. And once again, I don't want a person like this in charge of my security because it is obvious she herself doesn't understand the law. Let's not forget what the sheriff's job is. Her job is to uphold the rule of law, not to undermine it by declaring guilt before the facts are known. If the agent broke the law, let the system hold them accountable. What the sheriff is saying is reckless, it's divisive, and puts federal law enforcement agents at risk. So now I'm going to play the last clip of the segment where she says that you don't want to go there because you don't want the smoke. That's the clip that went viral. Take a look.
So I'm with the DA, and we will work with them. If any of them want to come in this city and commit a crime, you will not be able to hide. Nobody will wish you off. You don't want this smoke, because we will bring it to you. And the fake, whatever they call them, because I can't say the name, but the criminal in the White House would not be able to keep you from going to jail.
You know, the part that irritates me about this whole press conference is the fact that the district attorney, the chief legal officer, is standing behind her and he seems to be so proud of what she's saying. Sounding proud of what she's saying while she sounds so ignorant. Look, I think as a society, we have a lot of reflecting to do. I mean, you have police chiefs, you have sheriffs calling out the president of the United States. Since when have you seen that happening? Since Donald Trump got elected. How come nobody had any issues with any policies that were carried out before? Why was nobody outraged when Obama was deporting millions of people from this country, or when Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton were promoting their rigorous deportation campaigns. The hypocrisy is incredible. Look, I'm going to make one final statement on the sheriff. This is the result of politicizing policing. When DEI checklists start replacing merit, experience, and constitutional literacy, you don't get better outcomes. You get confusion, arrogance, and dangerous miscalculations. Policing is not an ideology. It's a profession where mistakes can cost lives. And what this sheriff is doing right now is a mistake. By engaging in all this rhetoric, she's putting law enforcement officers' lives at risk. What's going to happen when people start rioting in the streets? Local law enforcement officers are going to have to go deal with that. And do you think that the protesters are going to distinguish between ICE and local police? They're going to do the same thing to both. And I think she needs to understand that actions have consequences. What you say has consequences, especially Governor Walz and Mayor Frey, because all they've been doing is engaging in reckless rhetoric. And that same rhetoric continues to lead to violence. Look, these protesters are going to continue to get more and more reckless with their actions. And it appears that they are all using the same excuse for their behavior. The fact that they're U.S. citizens. Did you hear Renée Good's wife, what she said right before the incident? U.S. citizen here, U.S. citizen here. And remember, the only reason that they do that is so that when they get detained, it makes headlines. And what does the headline read? A U.S. citizen has been detained or arrested by ICE. And for those that don't know, they'll say, oh, look, ICE is arresting U.S. citizens now and deporting U.S. citizens, which has never happened. These protesters are getting bold. As a matter of fact, take a look at this clip where they're blocking federal ICE agents from leaving their hotel.
Here's news. Fox News alert: an unlawful assembly declared in Minneapolis after thousands of anti-ICE protesters hit the streets in response to the fatal shooting of Renée Good.
The situation turning violent, with one group attempting to breach a hotel where they believed ICE agents are staying.
Matt Finn is live on the ground in Minneapolis with the latest. Matt, good morning. What are you seeing there?
Well, Rachel, it's quiet right now, but really just a few hours ago, not far from where I'm standing, things turned violent and got pretty dicey. A large crowd of protesters and rioters surrounded a hotel where they believe immigration agents are staying here in Minneapolis. Our Garrett Tenney was on the scene last night. He said a smaller group of the protesters broke into the depot in downtown Minneapolis, tossing around the furniture inside, while others were spray painting anti-ICE messages on the windows. Now, outside, the protesters were playing instruments, banging drums, and blowing whistles to prevent immigration agents from sleeping or getting rest.
Now, what happens if those ICE officers fear for their lives? If a mob of people rush the hotel, attempt to get into their rooms, and they fear for their lives, how is the police department not getting a hold of this? They need to get control of the situation on the ground. You know, I think there's one person that's benefiting mightily from this whole thing, and that's Ilhan Omar, because a lot of the attention has been taken away from all the fraud that occurred in the state, and now it's being placed on these ICE operations. But Ilhan Omar is still in the news. She went to an ICE facility where she wanted to exercise her right to make sure that our federal tax dollars were being spent the right way. How ironic is that? Take a look.
We were initially invited in to do our congressional oversight.
Congresswoman Ilhan Omar, Angie Craig, and Kelly Morrison attempted to use their authority to enter the federal building to see detainee conditions.
We were briefly allowed entry into a holding area and very abruptly were removed. We were not able to meet with any of the detainees. Saw very briefly a number of young appearing men sitting on short benches with holding their heads in their hands. There were no beds that I saw.
Now, do you notice that when these politicians show up, they never show up by themselves? They always show up with a gang of reporters. And then the expectation is that the reporters going with them to the ICE facility. But look, these politicians, including Ilhan Omar, aren't the only ones that express a distaste for our country and for what they believe it's become today. Take a look at what Jesse Ventura had to say about our country.
You want to know something? I'll give you a quote. We're a third world country now. You want to know why? I'm an expert. I've been to them. I spent 17 months in Southeast Asia while the draft dodger was playing golf, right? You know how I know we're a third world country? Because in third world countries, they have the military doing their police work in the cities when you walk around. I was in the Philippines the day Ferdinand Marcos declared martial law and went under dictatorship. We went from nobody to a guy with a machine gun on every corner. That's what happens in a dictatorship. In comes the military. That's what's happening here.
What Jesse Ventura is saying is absolutely ridiculous. We are not a third world country. I've been all over the world. I was born in one. And the United States of America is the greatest country in the world. It is nowhere near being a third world country. Now, if you don't think that's true, all you have to think about is the democracy and the freedom that you have here. Do you think that in one of these countries in Latin America or any of these countries anywhere else, you would have the same freedom to protest the way that you're protesting here? Especially in some of the countries in Latin America. You would be beaten down by the police, especially for engaging in some of the crazy acts that people do here, like burning the American flag, which is something that I still don't understand. Remember, we're a democracy. We have freedom here. If you don't like this country, you can leave. I completely disagree with the former governor's perspective that this is a third world country. Now I'm going to give you one last perspective, which is Stephen A. Smith. Take a look at what he had to say.
That at some point in time, you got to ask yourself, what damn country do you want to live in? At some point in time, we're going to have to ask ourselves that question. And I think the time is sooner than later. Because again, from a legal perspective, don't expect this ICE officer to be prosecuted. I'm telling you right now. She was in the car, Renée Good, 37 years of age, protesting, blocking off the streets. ICE wanted her to move. An officer got in front of the car, another officer got to the side of the car, and then she tried to take off. And in their eyes, the Kristi Noems of the world for the Department of Homeland Security, and other folks on the right are saying, yo, they consider it an act of domestic terrorism because she tried to run over an ICE officer. It's not going to be prosecuted. My point is, let's not focus on that for a second, okay? She was wrong to drive off. She should not have done that. Should have got out of her car to prove that she was not going to be any harm, or she should have asked the officer, I'm pulling over, could you move out the way, please? Instead of trying to disregard him totally to the point where you're going to take off and potentially hit him, and he moves out the way and draws his gun and shoots through the front windshield and took her out.
I'll tell you one thing that you can always count on with Stephen A. Smith is that he's going to give you the unfiltered truth. I equate him to Senator Fetterman, who always gives you the unfiltered truth. And Senator Fetterman is the only one that's coming out and telling both sides, we need to turn down the heat. And if we don't, things are only going to continue to spiral out of control. Here he is.
The mayor of Minneapolis says that ICE should get the F out of their city. Do you think they should get out?
I mean, I'm not that close to the kind of violence and the tragedy, so I don't want to judge that. But for me, I think it's all probably always more helpful to turn the temperature down and just withhold, the kinds of extremes to say, hey, let's everybody, turn the temperature down, honestly. Whether that's coming from some kinds of the rhetoric from Secretary Noem or the president, or whether the mayor or governor. It's really, let's just turn down the temperature, and we can't forget someone's lost their life, and now we have to investigate the circumstances because that should never happen.
So in closing this episode, I'm going to show you one more clip of how violent things are getting in Minnesota. Things are getting completely out of control. People need to understand that nothing good is going to come out of you attacking a federal agent. Nothing good.
Do it. Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't. Hey, get that guy with direct impact. Get back. Get back. Get back. Get back. I've been amazed. Get back. Get back. Bro.
And unfortunately what happens is that the media only takes these clips and plays the dramatic parts of the clip. So when everyday Americans see it, all they see is ICE agents taking down some random person, especially when they're taking down females. Because remember, all they publish is sensationalism. They don't publish facts. They don't publish the truth. And in the end, all that does is increase the violence against ICE, against federal enforcement officers who are only doing their jobs of enforcing the laws that are on the books. I think we need to do better. I think as a society we need to do better. I think we need to stop hating each other. And I think the way that we do that is by having more people find God. I'm telling you, people are moving too far away from God. All right, that's the show for today. I hope you guys enjoyed. Like, share, subscribe, and until next time, stay balanced.